So yesterday, Daiwa dropped an absolute bomb onto the fishing tackle market here in Australia, and that means that finally I can start talking about this lure that I've been keeping to myself for almost a year now. I'm absolutely pumped about it. The lure is the Double Clutch 48 SP, and if you're an estuary fisherman in Australia, you're going to want this in your tackle box. Trust me. In this video, I'm going to talk about the lure, why it has been and is my #1 lure this year, where and how I fish it, and of course, we'll be giving a full set of these brand new lures away. Let's get into it. So you might remember this clip at the start of the year where I spoke about 2 of the new lures that were coming out to the market, and that I was pretty excited about one of them. I couldn't talk about it at the time, but this is that lure. Generally, I'm the type of guy that gets pretty excited about new lures that hit the market, that catch fish, but let me express that out of all the lures that I have been testing this year and all the products and everything that I've been looking at, this is the one that has been the most exciting for me, and it's easy because it's catching a ridiculous amount of fish. Often when I'm testing lures, it takes me a session or 2 to get comfortable with them, understand how they work, whereabouts in the water column they need to be worked. I can tell you with this lure, it just smashed fish from the very get-go. So after almost a year of playing and fishing with this lure, the first thing that we're going to do is talk about this lure and exactly where it's going to sit in your tackle box. Now, the original Double Clutch we all know is one of the most successful lures on the market, and the Double Clutch 48 is the same shape and design as its larger brothers. The change in size for this lure means that the lure is going to be great at catching a range of species that the larger Double Clutches were just a little bit too large for. As an estuary fisherman here in Australia, there's 2 main species that I reckon this lure has really stood out for. The first one is whiting, and I found that the lure presents as a small bait fish running along those sandy flats and a little bit of weed and broken up sort of rubble. And time again, I have watched whiting just pack hunt this lure. It's led to some nice sessions on the boat, both in this boat and in the kayak, that have led to dinner on the table and a nice feed for the family. And the second species is yellowfin bream. Now, the larger sizes of the Double Clutch have been historically known for catching lots of black bream, and this lure will still do that, but this size really opens up that yellowfin, and yellowfin all the way up the coastline of Australia, all the way up to the Gold Coast. This year with that lure on this boat, I have picked up fish at St George's Basin, Foster and the Gold Coast. If you need a little bit more convincing on that, think to yourself that Echo Gear SX40. Now, the SX40 is a little bit stubbier, the Double Clutch is a little bit longer than it, but in terms of the bait size or the profile, it's about the same because the Double Clutch is ever so slightly thinner. So if you're a predatory fish looking for a meal, that's about the right size feed as what they're used to seeing. Technically also, the lure is classified as a 48 SP, which makes it a suspending lure. I can attest, and it is actually advertised in the documentation, that it is a suspending lure in freshwater. In saltwater, it does float because it's just a little bit more buoyant in that makeup, but you can see here, it still definitely does float. Now, the lure does dive to 3.5 feet and that 1 meter mark. And the last point I will make in this section about the lure has got to do with the silent gravity oscillating system, SGOS. I'm pretty sure that's correct, but it means that this really light 2.7 gram lure casts like a rocket, and having that system is very unique in small lures like this one. But typically the issue you have with a small light lure is often that they cast poorly. There's just not enough weight to send it. So brands often add ball bearings in the middle of the lure to help, but that often makes them loud and rattly and not the best for your finesse application. The lure gets around this by having a sliding weight in the middle of the lure. The lure flies to the back when you're casting so that it goes like a ball, and then when you're retrieving it, it slides to the front again and keeps that nose down during the retrieve. I don't want to mislead you here. I'm just comparing it to other lures that I've tried that are this weight, and it doesn't suffer as much of a penalty from being such a light lure. Now there's definitely more locations than what I'm about to describe, but I'm going to take you through 3 applications for where this lure really worked well for me. The first one is in an open and expansive flat like the one I've got behind me. I'll send the drone up here and you can have a look at what I'm talking about. But this type of flat isn't anything new when it comes to the double clutch. With this type of fishing, you want a fishing rod that's probably over 7 feet, you want straight through fluorocarbon, and you want to be casting with the wind to really maximize the cast distance. When you're casting like this, try and aim for the discolored sand, the darker spots that look a little bit patchy or bruised, I guess. I reckon the best type of cast here is one where you get that lure on the other side of the patch and then twitch it back to that brown spot that you've seen. The trick is to pause the lure over the top of the patch, and that's generally where you'll end up getting smacked. Oh. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. I'm on a flat, so I got no reason to have the drag tight. He's doing a big circle. You know, there's a couple of bits of weed that are maybe 15 mil thick that the fishes are hiding on or around, and I cast about let's say nice fish at half a foot off the edge, so the fish had to come out and commit to it. I don't mind doing that as a bit of a technique. The fish has gone, circled back around to his weed patch. It's basically on top of where he was before. See if I can do something a bit different here. Tuck you under my armpit. Basically watch what's going on from there. That weed patch you can see that is basically where I cast it, just off to the right hand side here. Another nice fish. Got to get back there. Fish, good, solid fish. Yeah, how good. All right, I'm gonna just go. Now that's really an effective brim retrieve technique. If you're going for whiting, well then I'd recommend that you go for a longer winds between those pauses and those twitches. Some guys don't pause their lure at all when they're going for whiting. I do a little bit. Have a go. If you can find a flat that's under 1 meter deep though, that constant retrieve will bury the bib of the lure into the sand and create a really nice disturbance there that whiting get really excited about. And if you're doing that and they're on the bite, hold on, you'll be able to see bow waves left, right and center of fish just chasing the lure down. It's a lot of fun. They'll smack that rear treble every single time. The second way that this lure really stood out to me was the sight casting aspects, and it was really good at not disturbing fish when it landed in the water, and I think that's got to do with its low profile and that 2.7 gram light weight. The lure was good when there was cloud cover, but when there was no cloud cover and it was completely sunny, this lure was really good at getting those spooky fish. Now I'll play some examples here, but if you're planning on sight casting fish, a good set of polarized lenses is going to pay dividend here. In this example, I was spotting a bunch of brim swim around a number of different weed beds, and when I'm targeting fish like that, for me, when the lure goes in, I tend to leave the lure on the surface until that splash that I've created kind of settles down. Now usually 5 to 10 seconds works here, but if the fish doesn't take the lure on the surface, I'll wind up the slack and do about 2 winds of action. That'll get the lure to vibrate everywhere, announce its presence, and that is usually when it gets smacked. The only black double clutch 48 in existence. And they're not getting remade either. How good is that? Now this isn't a sponsored review and the views of these lures are my own. You'll hear these in the constructive points in a moment, but I will send a big thank you to Daiwa Australia for not only letting me test these guys for a year, provide a little bit of feedback, but for today's giveaway, provide a full set of double clutch 48s, the brand new ones, to hit the market to one of you guys. The giveaway will be drawn in 1 week's time, and to enter, you're going to need to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and comment below on 2 things. The first, what fish you would target with these lures, and the second, where exactly you would target them. If you don't want to give me your system or where you're fishing, maybe the type, in structure, on the weeds, in the racks, up to you. So like I said, the announcement in 1 week from today, do those 3 things and comment with those 2 requirements down below and you'll be in the running. So the first constructive point I've got to it is how to use this lure. I've mentioned before that ESCOS system and the fact that it is a smaller lure. So when you are considering straight through fluorocarbon, it is challenging to use. Whilst it definitely can be done, and a lot of the fish in this video are caught on straight through fluorocarbon, I think for the average punter using this lure or getting into it, the way to go would be with a braid leader combo. Braid anywhere under 10 pound, and in terms of leader, I like 4 pound and around about 3 rod lengths. Quite long when using this one, particularly because this is a finesse type presentation. You want to get your braid as far away from the lure as possible, so that's why I go with the 3 rod lengths as my default when using this. If you're going to throw straight through fluorocarbon like I have in some of these catches in the video, I'd recommend that you go with a rod length that is around about 7.3 and try and go with the wind. You're just going to cop too much of a penalty if you're on a short rod and you're casting in the wind. This lure will not go very far at all. Now the second issue and the constructive point that I've got is actually more of an issue for me than anybody else. It's got some rippers colours in it. There's blue suji and the matte prawn, the ones that I've shown you through this, by far my favourite colours, but it's missing 2 colours that I reckon should be in this range. The first one is the Moby. I love that colour in some of the other lures that are in there, and it's kind of missing from this one. And the other lure that I would have liked to have seen it is this bad boy here, because that ghost colour is proven in the other sizes of the double clutch. I would have really loved to have seen it in this small size. So we've gone through a good amount of information. Thank you for sticking with me. Now, if it's not abundantly clear, I love this lure. Now, as the sun comes out, I'll provide a little bit of perspective. Whenever I go fishing, I have 2 rods on me, my favorite soft plastic rig and my favorite soft plastic lure on the end there. That's where I usually start, and then I change up from there depending on the conditions of the day. The other one is my favorite hard body lure, or hard body rig, I should say. Since I've had this lure, this is my favorite hard body. It is the #1 on this boat at the moment. It is the default one, the one that I throw first, and at the moment, the one that I love and I cannot get enough of it. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Stay safe. Remember the giveaway. I'll see you next time.